Seems like everyone's talking about video in podcasting these days. That was definitely the impression that I got from Podcast Movement Evolutions recently, listening to all the feedback and content on that, all the takeaways. And going down to the podcast show in London felt like a good opportunity to put the old podcaster's hat on, or headphones as it were, and just walk around the floor with a microphone, see who I could bump into, and ask the question, in a world of video buzz, of video hype, is it still important to try and preserve or even to champion spoken word audio in its own right? I got some really good answers. I thoroughly enjoyed putting this one together. Let's get straight into it and hear from James Cridland of Pod News.
Yeah, I think it's massively important. There's lots of talk here about video. There's lots of talk about YouTube and Spotify video. But at the end of the day, the reason why podcasting is so successful is that it's something for the ears when your eyes are busy. That's what podcasting has always offered, and if we forget that, then I think we make a mistake for where the future's going. So by all means add video, but let's not forget that podcasting really works when it's something for your ears when your eyes are busy.
Hi, my name is Anna Ratala from Red Circle. I think absolutely. I think, there's a reason why podcasts became such a huge and important medium and continues to grow. And I think one of the reasons is because people want to be away from their screens. And I don't think that that's going to change anytime soon. I think it's amazing that video podcasts are here and they're great for, marketing and for the advertising and, promoting your show. But I do think that there's definitely still space for people to listen without having to look at their screens, being able to multitask in today's busy world. I'm still a very, very big fan. That's how I listen to my podcast, is through audio only.
Here's Joel Perelman from Riverside.
Yeah, I think it's important to preserve it because that's the way I got into podcasting, and that's still the way that I think of podcasting. As soon as you say podcast to me, I'm thinking audio only, and I still think it's still the way to go. And it's still that collaboration between your imagination and the creator, and you kind of put the two things together and you get to make the story up in your head. So yeah, spoken word has to be protected, but I also see the appeal of video. You can reach, audiences are changing, and I think it's probably best to have both if you can. Obviously Riverside will help with that, but yeah, spoken word is, for me, it's audio in its purest form.
My name's Carl Hartley, and I'm a lecturer in journalism practice at the University of Leeds. Yeah, I think videos in podcasting does have a place for advertising it or promoting it, and some podcasts do benefit from having video, but for me, it's like, for example, I've been here all day at the festival, going around meeting people, chatting all day. I've been on my phone, looking at my LinkedIn. I'm constantly on the screen. When I get on the train to go back up north, I want to sit back, put my headphones on, close my eyes, and listen to a podcast. I don't want to be watching a podcast. So for me, I think it's really important to not lose what a podcast is, or lose that audio side of a podcast and the benefits of a podcast from an audio point of view. So like I say, tonight I'll be on the train, closed eyes, building those pictures in my mind, not having to watch what somebody's saying. Because when people are doing podcasts and they're on there, they'll talk about jumpers, they'll talk about, what you're wearing. As an audio podcast listener, I haven't seen what they're wearing. So I'm with you. I think that for audio podcasting, we need to preserve that, and we need to celebrate that, and don't lose that uniqueness of a podcast that is audio.
Hi, my name is Abby Soye, and I am part of A1 Studios. Yeah, I definitely do. As a producer myself, I know that there are certain genres of storytelling that audio only beats. In terms of narrative storytelling, sometimes visual can be a distraction, but really building engaging audio and sound engineers are just fantastic. It's really important, and it can be a really great vehicle to tell stories. Yeah, I'm very much for still audio. In fact, my own podcast is audio only, one of them, and one of them is visual. I can see which one needs it and which one doesn't, but yeah, there's space for all. Just to add, not every podcast needs visuals in a long form sense. I think you can have an audio only podcast and then create short social clips to promote your podcast on socials, but it doesn't need, it could be like you can create 3 to 5 30-second social clips to bring your audience, but you don't need the full long form on your podcast. So just want to encourage you that. Yeah.
Here's Pete Donaldson of Stack.
Hugely, because the video space is dominated and dictated and ruled by an uncaring algorithm, and spoken word stuff kind of is the last bastion of discoverability for the sake of discoverability and word of mouth. It's the last place that people discover stuff because they want to discover stuff, rather than what a semi-intelligent algorithm has told them that they probably like because of the age that they are, or the sex that they are, or the other interests that they have. So yeah, I think it's one of the RSS feed, the spoken word stuff is the only pure sort of discipline anymore, I would say, compared to video. Because video is just dominated by YouTube and the algorithm, which makes our life terrible.
Here's Jay Naklis from Coleman Insights.
So I think that we might be partially responsible for this. Yes. So, we put out the State of Video Podcasting study, and it shows a lot of the stuff that and that we've been talking about. That we know that YouTube is really surging as a podcast platform, and we know that more people are using audio and video together. 77% use both. But the way to interpret that is not that it's some sort of bad news or death knell for audio. And I don't want it to be misinterpreted that way. Because another thing that's happening that I think is very exciting for podcasting is that audio consumption in the areas it should be going up is going up. Audio always underperformed in car and it overperformed in home. And what we're now seeing is audio is actually surging in car. The more people have connected cars, by the way, that's going to keep going up. Walking and exercising, on the go, at work, all of these numbers for audio are going up. Where video is dominating and doing really well is at home. And part of that is because YouTube consumption is happening more and more in smart TVs, right? So people are watching video podcasts as a replacement for a regular linear streaming TV show in the home. And that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing because audio and video are complementary to each other, not one replacing the other. And it actually is a good thing for the medium in general because it makes it an all-day medium. It's like it lifts all the tides. The other thing I would say about audio is there is a magic about audio and a purpose for audio that can never go away. There are certain contextual places that you'll never watch video, you'll need audio. There are certain categories that will always be more conducive to audio, like storytelling, narrative, fiction. That all said, yeah, I think audio is never going to go away, and it's always going to be crucial and always going to play an important role. And I can't reiterate enough that I don't think it should be misinterpreted that video is somehow replacing audio.
Here's Sarah Golden now from Indie AF.
So I've just been to a chat about using video within podcasting, and I thought it was very interesting that they flipped it and said about the amount of people perhaps who've got loads of video content on YouTube that will be bringing things to audio because they've got an audience established and so on. So I thought that was really interesting to flip that way rather than thinking that in any way, shape or form that audio was the lesser. I'm very passionate about pure audio creation. I think the reason why I've been drawn to it is because if you say within fiction, imagine a super amazing spaceship, everyone will imagine a very different one, and that's why I love it specifically. And as a voice actor too, I have got so much more range vocally than I have physically. And less people will be perhaps unwell if they had to deal with me being visual on a podcast. But the main thing I think for me is that the aesthetics of creating video have things like you need your space to look nice that you're recording in, you need your perhaps speakers to have hair and makeup and those kind of extra incurred costs where you can just, like we are now, jump into any situation and have a lovely chat in audio. So I think audio still wins through for me, but I can see a place for it, and similarly to AI-based created things, it will have its own audience. It's not like it's going to take over spoken word. It's just going to be gently alongside and another option. And for my own podcast, Indie AF, for interviewing, I've done a lot more recently which have the recorded sort of Zoom part of it. So I've been giving those as extras to my Patreons, and they seem to like that, seeing the person being chatted to. But it's not really aesthetic, you know, we haven't gone out and the sets are beautiful. It's me in my makeshift kind of place chatting to amazing people. So yeah, I think it has its place, but I don't know, pure audio is still my very much favourite.
Here's Young Zhao from Opus Clip.
I think people right now should definitely cherish video format instead of audio. Not only because it's much easier to be discovered, it's much easier to grow, but also it brings you a ton of opportunity to monetize your content. So, just turn on your camera, just show your face up front. You don't need to do much things else, and with the easy tools like Opus Clip, you don't need to spend any additional time of editing that content. Then you can create high quality video podcasts, high quality video short clips to post on any social channels. That's gonna bring you 10x or even 100x in terms of traffic, in terms of followers, and revenues.
Here's Lauren Passell of Podcast Marketing Magic.
Well, I feel like video is completely separate. Everything you can, if you want to be on video, if you want to have a YouTube presence, that's fine, but you have to treat it as an entirely separate platform. You can't just have a podcast and then put it on YouTube. You have to market it differently, you have to edit it differently, you have to have different equipment. You have to treat them as two completely different audiences, people that expect different things. I'm a champion of audio. I think you get better conversations when it's just a microphone. I think when there's not a camera, better things happen. I think, my best example is Terry Gross of Fresh Air has interviews. She doesn't even do Zoom because when you're on Fresh Air, you just go into a studio. And she's in a studio, separate studios, and because she cares about a good conversation. And so you don't need to see each other for a good conversation. You're really thinking about those words. So if your goal, like Terry Gross's goal, is to have a good conversation, you do not need video. So I'm a champion of good conversations and good audio. For that to happen, you don't need video. And I was just thinking, even if, as I was answering your question, I was closing my eyes, wasn't I?
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. I think good things happen when we aren't watching and we're just thinking about the words being spoken.
Naomi Wing now from Blueprint Studio.
Well, I personally listen to podcasts when I'm in the car or when I'm going to work, walking. So I always listen to them. I don't really watch them. But then at the same time, I suppose if there was someone that I'm really interested in and wanted to see how they connect with people, what their mannerisms are, it's quite an interesting perspective to get. I suppose it's always good to have the option.
My name's Jack Drury. I do market development for Shure. It's a really interesting question. We hosted a podcast talk earlier today about tech, right, for podcasts, and one of the things that came up was the importance of video. And the guy I was presenting with is a guy called Marcus Bronzy, who's a broadcaster. His view is that vertical video just smashes through everything else at the moment in terms of getting your podcast reach out there. So if you want to make a podcast and you want to get it out to the masses, his view is, and I tend to agree with it, you have to be doing vertical video and you have to make it work and you have to make it land. I still believe that the video element might help you market the podcasts, but the audio quality of your podcast and the quality of the content itself is going to be the thing that people listen to and come back to. So put that another way, you can probably do the video a bit badly if you wanted to. You can make it look a bit grainy, perhaps the lighting's not very good. Just getting that content is enough. But if you do the same with the audio, you've lost. If you get a low quality audio file, low quality audio content, people aren't going to want to come back and listen to it. So I think the answer to your question is you do need to do both. but the audio side is the bit that people will find the most exhausting if it doesn't sound very good.
So I'm Kaleem, I'm an account executive at Sapolti, focusing on helping pay publishers, creators and advertisers. I don't think I've actually watched a podcast. Occasionally you get the odd snippet when you're on Instagram or so on and so forth, but majority of the time when I'm listening to a podcast, I'm either running, I'm either in the gym or I'm in the car. So I think the need for video is mainly to promote the brand of the presenters, of the people having conversations, and obviously, you know, letting them see the content for sponsors and so on and so forth. But realistically, spoken word is key, and it's always going to be key. It is purely and simply the easiest form of communication, and it gives people the opportunity to listen, learn, whilst doing something else. And I think that's the most important thing.
Now we're going to hear from Louise Lambert from Reviewed and Cleared.
I definitely think it's still important. A colleague of mine springs to mind who regularly walks her dog along a beautiful part of the Devon coast while listening to a podcast, and she wouldn't be able to watch video in the same way. And I think, you know, in today's busy world, audio definitely has a really important role to play, and actually I think it can help people to switch off. I know my little boy listens to audio every night when he goes to sleep.
Hey, this is Gary from the Captivate booth at the podcast show, London 2025. I think it requires a different mindset to consume that type of content with just audio. So the spoken words thing is, people can consume that at any time, really. So it's one of those things where you can just smack your headphones in, and you can do that while driving, exercising, you know, vacuuming a house, whatever. You can do that stuff. So having the audio-only spoken word stuff is so important because it allows a much wider range of people to consume sort of any time, whereas the video stuff, and there's a lot of hype around that, especially in the last year, as I said, you have to kind of be in the right place to do that, to consume it properly. So obviously you can't watch a video podcast when you're driving, and you can't really sit down and, you have to sit down and sort of focus on that properly. Whether you've got that on Apple TV or an iPhone or something like that, where you've got, you know, a visual thing and you're watching something, you kind of, you know, both senses are occupied at the same time. You have to concentrate a bit more. Whereas with the audio-only stuff, I feel like it's so important. And in terms of preservation, we have loads of people who have said, in terms of their own podcasts, how many people go back and listen to the back catalogue. We have a lot of people who say fans have just jumped on board and it's like episode, 452 or something. And they've really enjoyed listening to that current one, but then also going back and checking out episode 1, going through that, and they can do that at their own pace and everything, and they don't have to sit down with a cup of tea and a meal, you know, fire up YouTube or whatever hosting platform to do that on. So, yes, preservation of spoken word, mega important, and I think that won't go away anytime soon.
That's a really good point about the back catalogue consumption. Like, without having any data to hand, I would imagine that like a podcast listener binging a back catalogue, say you've got 50 hours of content, like they're much more likely surely to consume the audio, 50 hours of audio, than sit down and consume 50 hours of video. So the back catalogue is probably a lot more effective in audio.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And it's also a cool way of checking out a show. It's a bit like when you're sort of late to the party with a TV show, when the whole world, it feels like, is watching a TV show and you haven't seen it. The beauty of streaming services and things like that is you can go back when you want and binge that at your own pace and do that. And it's exactly the same concept, I guess, with the audio stuff on podcasts. You don't have to worry too much about being in with the sort of up to the second trend of listening to latest episodes. You can go back and listen to whatever you want when you want, but you couldn't really do that as easily with a video podcast, I don't think. So yeah, having that back catalogue easily digestible in audio is so super important. Yeah.
I'm Tavia Gilbert, and I'm doing my shift for the Podcast Academy. My company, we amplify world-changing voices through audio-first storytelling, because audio is the most intimate medium. So yes, video is interesting to look at, but it cannot compete with the power of the spoken word. That is our birthright as humans. The first thing we do is use our voice when we are born. So I think there's a reason why audio is so powerful and, to me, the most interesting medium. Video is a little bit of an add-on. It's fine. But if the audio is not powerful first, then I think you have not a lot of substance.
All right, here's Justin Jackson of Transistor.
I think so, because that's like still the thing that is unique and interesting about podcasting. Like James Cridland says, it's something for your ears while your eyes are busy. And I mean, a lot of the discussion about video is really not about video podcasts. I'm actually pretty open to video. I think video has existed in podcasting from the beginning. It can be interesting. On my iPod Video Classic, I used to listen to podcasts on there as well, but switch between video podcasts and audio podcasts on there. I think the conversation about video that worries me is YouTube. I think YouTube as a platform is consuming all types of media, right? And if we're not careful, we could basically give the entire podcasting category to them. I think it's fine that they're involved, but I'm more just wary about YouTube taking over and consuming everything. And one way for us to kind of protect podcasting or differentiate podcasting is to say, well, what makes podcasting unique? At its core, it's audio first. And especially now, like if you look at my kids who are all 15 to 22, they are like trying to get away from the addictive stuff on their phones. So it feels like there's a unique opportunity right now to position audio podcasting as, here's a way you can escape all of this addictive stuff on your phone. So there's this moment right now is like, there's an opportunity because there's kind of this, the pendulum is swinging the other way. Young people especially, but I think almost everybody's getting tired of being sucked into YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, and TikTok. So what is the calm alternative to that kind of short-form, dopamine-inducing media? Well, it's long-form, calm podcasting. And a lot of podcasting is like, I'm out for a drive and I'm listening. I'm out for a walk and I'm listening. I'm doing some chores and I'm listening. It's very mindful and calm. And so, yeah, I think that's the opportunity is, and whether, there's, podcasts can be on YouTube, that's fine. Podcasts can have video, that's also fine. But the opportunity right now is to be kind of like, here's the calm alternative to a media world that really wants to get you addicted, that really wants to suck you in and have you scrolling for hours so they can sell more ads. I think podcasting needs some good PR. And so if increasingly people are like, especially young people are like, oh, well, podcast is something I watch on YouTube, I think the counter opportunity is to say, well, there is a form of podcasting in a distinct audio only or podcasting first app that might also have video, but audio first apps that won't suck you in. So you go into YouTube to listen to a podcast, but then you get sucked into YouTube Shorts. Well, if you're looking for an escape from that, there is this other thing on your phone already. If you have an iPhone, which is Apple Podcasts, and you can kind of separate yourself from that addictive stuff. Yeah, I think there's a real cultural opportunity there that we haven't had before.
Here's Isabella Russell now from Music Radio Creative.
It's a really great question, and actually, funnily enough, I've been speaking with Todd from Blueberry Stand, so one of the podcast hosts, and he was voicing the same concern. He said that actually we see the audio podcasts plateau because everybody all of a sudden is going, wow, into the video world, but actually audio has its own place, and it always had. So it's been here for far longer longer than video, and actually it's a far more intimate medium. You know, there is that magic around it, right, where you are listening to audio, you are kind of visualizing the story. I still remember one of the best podcasts I've ever listened to is Serial Podcast. Like, the storytelling of this was phenomenal, and I think that if we look at audio content like this absolutely has a space still there, right? But the very harsh truth is that there are a lot of podcasts out there. The market has become, somehow saturated with content. It's really hard to discover good content, and it's even harder when it's audio because we don't have the luxury of amazing algorithm like YouTube algorithm to push discoverability to relevant audiences. And this is becoming a problem, right? Because people are all of a sudden discovering that actually, I'm putting the audio content on, but nobody is listening. I'm not getting any. So it's a lot harder work than it used to be to actually make this something, but it still has a place in this podcasting world. And I think that as audio creators, we should definitely promote that more. We should definitely talk about it, but also we should have an open industry discussion about how we can help podcasters to become discovered and how maybe there is a space for a new algorithm to be created to enable that discoverability to relevant audience, because this is what is lacking and this is what's tanking the audio content, in my opinion.
All right, then here's Todd Cochran of Blueberry.
I think the video component is important, but I think people get overwhelmed a little bit, especially new creators. So if you're a new creator just starting out and you think you have to do video, so I don't want to do video. Well, you don't have to do video. You can do audio to start, build your audience. The audience around audio has not left, but the number of producers creating audio have declined. So shows are producing audio right now. It's the best time to be an audio podcaster, believe it or not, because it's almost instantaneous audience growth because fewer new shows are coming out. They're doing audio only. And I'm a proponent of video. I think live video is fun. For me, it gives me a chance to integrate and have engagement with an audience. But I think people get overwhelmed when you say, I got to do video. And in the video, they think it's YouTube. Well, also, people forget that podcasting, when it originated in 2004, video is available via an RSS distribution. So you can actually have a video podcast, a true RSS-based video podcast. Apple Podcasts actually will show you a video as well. Most people don't know that. So I think, if you decide you want to do video, great. But if you're overwhelmed and want to do just audio, there's still a huge opportunity there.
Alec Chunley, Red Circle. Yeah, of course it's important. I'm personally an audio-only listener, but I work with tons of shows who have strong video audiences, and YouTube owning a lot of the distribution and owning all of the views. It's important for us to reach the audiences where they are, and if they're on YouTube, we'll go there. And if they're interested in discovery, YouTube's a great way to be found, especially if you hit the algorithm. That kind of stuff doesn't exist on the audio platforms for the most part, other than you can see recommended shows, similar content, but oftentimes if you're in the Spotify app, it's a Spotify show that's recommended to you. It's not always unbiased recommendations. But I think video's been a growing part of the podcasting world, and there's a lot of buy-in. It's buzzy, but I think there's reason for it.
I'm Dan Kendall. I'm the founder of Health Podcast Network. A lot of people ask me if creating video is still really important for podcasts. And I always think about the listener experience or the audience experience. So what's serving them in the best way possible. And when you really take a look at how people are consuming podcasts and where they're inviting you into their space, I think that audio is still critically important because you're spending time with them in their kitchens, in their cars, while they're exercising on the treadmill. So you're out and about walking with them while they're walking their dog and spending time in their car on the way to work or commuting to pick up their kids. So I think that sort of experience of how people are consuming podcasts really lends itself to an audio-first experience, and then using video as a way to try to attract that audience through the other social channels where people spend their time.
Here's Felix Trench from Wooden Overcoats.
I don't think it's going anywhere, is it? Because, spoken word is a thing that people will always seek out, because there will always be spaces where you need it. People will always be listening to it on the tube, they'll be listening to it on the car. I was struck really early on in podcasting that the US and the UK seemed to go in two very different directions. One for kind of big conversational hour-long things, and we were much more sort of half-hour and comedy. But of course in the US they were used to talk radio and commutes, and we were used to chopping carrots at 6:30 listening to the Radio 4 comedy slot. That's just what we're used to, right? And we'll always be chopping carrots at 6:30. So I think that it will always be there as to sort of championing it in the current moment. Just kind of encouraging people to keep using those podcast feeds and make sure that there is an audio version out there. I don't think it's going anywhere. Did you ever see this? There's some law of technology that the more recent it is, the more likely it is to die, and the older the technology. That's why theatre will never die, because theatre is at least like 3,000 years old. Film is more recent than radio, so we should expect radio to outlast film, which is kind of counterintuitive when you think about it, but exciting.
Here's Ian Prowse from Vortex.
Most people listen to podcasts in their car, on the way home, they're not reading stuff. And if you think about it, when you do a Zoom call or a Teams call or a WhatsApp call, you look at each other and you might wave at each other, but that's the end of it. And it's just ridiculous that everyone's being drawn into this video stuff, which is very onerous in terms of technique and make it nice and make it good, when most of the content is in the audio. If you think about it, it's an audio, what people say that matters. It's not where they are, it's not what they look like, it's what they say.
All right, then here's Bethany Jane from Music Radio Creative.
I think it is important to just have the audio rather than the video as well. I think your focus is really drawn when you're just listening to something, and sometimes the video can detract a little bit. So I think, I would say, it's very important to keep that.
All right, then here is podcast consultant Sarah McDowell.
I absolutely love this question because I feel like there's a bit of a divide. So I hear a lot of, and they're relatively like newer podcasters who want to, get into video. Like the podcast, the show, the content isn't just audio, it's video as well. Whereas the more old school, me, when I first started podcasting, video wasn't even on my radar because I wanted to start podcast and I wanted to do the audio and figure that out. So I think for me, it just all depends on your audience, right? And it'll always go back to who's listening to your content, who is listening to your podcast, and how are they listening. So for example, I'm a podcast listener, but I don't watch them. Like I am listening to them and I'm on my commute somewhere, or doing chores, or taking Benny the dog out for a walk. So I do think it all depends on a specific podcast and where the audience is, and like trends happen, don't they? And video is the new trend, and I get it, because if you have video as part of your strategy and as part of your content, it's more visibility, but you have to do it right, and that's the challenge. I suppose it just really on the fence answer, but it just really depends, doesn't it? And anything that you're doing, so if you're doing video, you've just got to do it right. But there's always going to be a space for audio only, but for me it's not an either or. It's all part of the wider strategy and the wider picture, and it will always come back to your audience at the end of the day.
Clayton M. Koch now from The Cashflow Show.
As far as I'm concerned, spoken word audio will never ever go out of fashion. It will always be there because there are always people who want to listen to somebody saying something. It's the most human, fundamental, basic thing. I do feel for younger people, the allure of video is because it makes them a film star or a TV star, and it makes them look sexier. And that's what I think young people want. Whereas I think when you get a bit more mature, you're more likely to say to yourself, do you know something? I want to hear somebody telling me the truth. So when you've got the video, you can glam it up, you can make yourself look dolled up and all of that stuff. But that's not what people really want. They want the truth. And that's what audio does. Should we work harder to champion it? Definitely. Because I think that people have got to see that there is a value in audio. And there is a value to listening to somebody say something. They talk about country music and they say country music is 3 chords and the truth. It's as basic, as simple as that. And that's what audio is. It's the truth. You can make it into something dramatic, but hearing somebody tell their story is the most powerful thing. Sometimes you don't need music, you don't need props, just somebody saying, this is my life, this is what I've done. So I think in the future, we will see a lot of people going back to audio and doing great things with it, because the technology for audio is absolutely amazing now. And it's affordable, it's doable, and it's here now.
Here's Kevin Field now of Think Listener.
I think there's some interesting things about this. There are 2 big sort of questions and narrative for the next year in podcast. One is the video question and audio first, video first or dual. The other is the advertising question. Too many adverts, is it going to break podcasting? Will people find the skip tool more than we need them to? So to answer your question, the first, I think it's something that, so Ofcom released their data at this event, podcast show, yesterday. And in their data, it says that people are listening to podcasts in their car. A lot of people, I think it was around 61, 63%. So if you take that on board, and you take on board also that there's some research out there, although quite anecdotal, that people who watch or moreover listen on YouTube to video content, it's a background activity, the video. They're actually listening to the audio. I once worked with a director called Andrew Morgan, a TV director, and he told me that he was a producer of EastEnders, a director, sorry, of EastEnders. He told me when the script writers were writing it and how they were directing it, they were doing it so that they understood people who were supposedly watching were doing something else at the same time of it being on the background. And they put wow factor moments into the programme so that you would stop and look at the TV, because they wanted to look at the TV as well. But it was written for a listener, not just a viewer. And I think that the big thing about this for me, and the advice I give to the clients I work with, is audio first. Think audio first, think listener. Because there are a slate of video podcasts where the audio is dreadful. There's another thing with it as well, where the people who are producing that content are not thinking about the listener. So there may be some sort of in-gag that's a visual in-gag about a shirt someone's wearing or something like that. But and it's not painting pictures with words when they do it. So the visuality for the listener's not there, the theatre of the mind's not there. But it might be if you're watching it in the video, but if you're not, then you're alienated from it. And it's the thing of closing the circle with the listener. It's a triangle, right? Scaramucci, the guy from Lucci from the Rest is Politics US, he was in a session today, and there's something he touched on it about audio. The power of audio, the power of their podcast, is that it closes the loop with the listener. So it's him, his guest, and that one person is a listener. And he talked about the power of that, how their podcast had an influence on elections. You know, so it's really interesting, and that's not visual, that's audio. If you look at what they do, Goalhanger, they've got video with it, but audio seems to be the first priority. So it's a long answer to your question. Good luck editing. But I think that for me it's audio first. I don't think we need to, the protection bit comes from, it is naturally audio first. Video will be there as a part of it, but if you look at the data still, a lot of people listen via Apple. A lot of people are listening while they're doing other things. As James Quidlin said, that podcast is the medium for the ears while the eyes are busy. And I think he's right. So I'm not concerned about it. What I do think it is, and I think this is the special bit for it, it's about discoverability. So YouTube, I think, will help with that discoverability. And it's a platform that so many people use. So if your podcast is discoverable by YouTube, I think the key for podcasters who use video is to promote where else you can listen to it, not just watch it. And that would build discoverability and listens and things like that.
All right, then last but not least is Jeremy Enns now of the Podcast Marketing Academy.
So Justin and I talked a lot about video and audio in our most recent season of our show, and I went into it feeling both a little bit worried about video, but also like there's a huge opportunity there. And actually, like coming out of the season after talking about it a lot, I'm feeling way more bullish on audio only. I think that there's going to be a split kind of where one of the themes that just keeps coming up for me is like we have a listener of our show, one of my clients, Michael Osborne. He has a show called Famous and Gravy. It got picked up by Wondery, and he's like been very successful. He had this quote in response to one of our episodes about how podcasting is where he goes to escape the internet. And that was, when he said that, I realized like, oh, that's how I use podcasting too. It's like a digital medium that is unplugged from algorithms, and it's more like reading a book where it's like more immersive, it's more slow. And I think that there's like this wave of anti-algorithm, anti-social media, like people are actually like going back to flip phones and all these things. I think that there is going to be more people, like there's this pull towards video. I think there's going to be more people in the coming years who are actually looking for non-video. They're actually trying to get away from that stuff, and that audio podcasting is already there, but more people just need to think about it in that way as like this escape from this like incessant, algorithmically driven, hypey, over-the-top marketing from other channels. So I think that's almost where the job, I think, for podcasting is in communicating, like, where does this sit in people's lives as an alternative? It's not... Audio podcasting should not be trying to be video podcasting. I think that's an opportunity for some people, but there's this other way to approach it where this offers something totally unique and disconnected in a really great way that you can't really get from any other mediums. So that's where my kind of mind is at right now, which is actually really exciting. I think there's like some people who will do great things with video shows, but that's a different thing than what audio-only shows can provide.
A massive thanks to everyone who took the time to stop for a chat down in London. I really do appreciate it, and it's been brilliant to listen back to everyone's thoughts when putting this episode together. I think we've heard a lot of different perspectives, but also, encouragingly, a lot of common ground. Remember, this isn't an either-or discussion. I don't think anyone would disagree that video is a part of podcasting, and it can work brilliantly for some folks in certain situations, but the central focus for podcasters should be to make something that can, to paraphrase James Cridland, entertain the ears whilst the eyes are busy. I'm going to finish off then by listing what I feel are the 5 key strengths of spoken word audio. So number 1, it's flexible. You could listen whenever and wherever you like, screen-free and hands-free. It's deep. It's ideal for unhurried stories, thoughtful interviews, and big ideas that need room to breathe. It's inclusive. There's no fancy setup needed, no lighting and background, they're all irrelevant. You can wear whatever you like, a tuxedo, pyjamas. I wear both, it's kind of an up-down combination thing. It's immersive without visuals. Your imagination does the work. There's that collaboration between creator and listener, and the pictures in your mind are more powerful than anything you could be served up on a screen. That's my background in audio drama speaking there. And it's distributed, small file size, easy to share, quick to load. Audio gets out into the world without any fuss. So that's it. We've solved it once and for all. I am, of course, joking. This is just one small part of what needs to be a bigger and ongoing conversation. If you'd like to have your say, then head on over to thepodcasthost.com/voicemail and send us a spoken word audio file. It'd be great to do a follow-up episode sometime in the near future. That link again is thepodcasthost.com/voicemail. Alright, that's it. Colin will be back next week and we'll be continuing our journey through the SCALE framework for podcast audience growth. Cheerio, and we'll speak to you then.